We're now joined by Al Gore, the former vice president, now chair of the Climate Reality Project. Also has a new film in theaters in July, an inconvenient sequel, Truth to Power. Mr. Vice President, thank you for joining us this morning. You just heard Administrator Pruitt right there. He said whether or not the president believes in man-made climate change doesn't matter. The United States is leading by example.
Well, Administrator Pruitt has a difficult job. The administration comes off as tongue-tied and confused about the climate crisis because the truth is still inconvenient for the large carbon polluters, and they don't want to stop the polluting of the atmosphere. It interferes with their business plan. But meanwhile, we're creating jobs in this country in the solar industry at a rate 17 times faster than other jobs. The #1 fastest growing job is wind power technician. The renewable energy sector and the sustainability revolution are the brightest spot for economic growth and prosperity in this country. The rest of the world is moving forward. President Trump isolated the United States with his reckless and indefensible decision, but if he won't lead, the American people will. So we're seeing governors and mayors and business leaders step forward.
So does it really make all that much difference then if the United States pulls out of the Paris Climate Accord? Remember back, the United States under George W. Bush pulled out of Kyoto, yet the innovation continued after that.
Well, we lost a lot of time when the U.S. Did not join the rest of the world community then. And while it is true that we have this sustainability revolution underway, and it's very exciting, it has the magnitude of the Industrial Revolution, but the speed of the digital revolution. But we're still not changing fast enough. Because it's not just the scientific community warning us now, it's Mother Nature. Every night on the TV news is like a nature hike through the book of Revelation. 70% of Florida is in drought right now. Missouri just declared an emergency with another one of these historic climate-related downpours. We've had 11 once-in-a-thousand-year downpours in less than 10 years in the United States. So we have to move faster. It's good news that the rest of the world is. It's good news that states and cities and businesses are. But we need presidential leadership. Since he's not going to lead, the American people are stepping up.
You lobbied the president on this, spoke with him back in Trump Tower in December, spoke with him on the phone in May as well. What can you tell us about those exchanges and what the president understands about this issue and his approach?
Well, I've honored a commitment to keep those conversations private. I'll tell you, nothing would surprise you about them. I presented all of the reasons why I felt and still feel it would be in the best interests of our country to stay in the Paris Agreement. But the president made the wrong decision, in my view, and in the view of most Americans. A majority in every one of our 50 states wanted the U.S. to stay in the agreement. A majority of President Trump's supporters and voters wanted us to stay in. 70% of the American people. So it was a reckless decision. But the good news is we are going to continue moving forward. It would be better if we could move faster.
You talk about the majority of American people, even the majority of Republicans saying they believe in this and they want action. We've also seen this whole idea that President Trump expressed during the campaign that climate change, man-made climate change is a hoax, really take hold among a large sector of the public. How do you explain that?
I don't think that's true among a large sector of the public. It's definitely true among a small sector. And, in Tennessee, we have a saying, if you see a turtle on top of a fence post, you can be pretty sure it didn't get there by itself. And similarly, if you see levels of climate denial in the U.S. that aren't true anywhere else in the world, you can be pretty sure that didn't happen by itself. The New York Times this morning traces this in part to the Citizens United decision that opened this flood of dark money, a lot of it coming from the carbon polluters to try to use the playbook of the tobacco industry decades ago to try to submerge the truth and put out a false set of alternative facts. But the American people are beginning to see through this, and the overwhelming majority already have.
And finally, on the whole issue of how this affects our relationship with our allies, you saw the president come back from Europe, meeting with the Pope, meeting with the French president, meeting with Angela Merkel, the German president, all of them pressing him very hard on this. Can this issue be compartmentalized, or is there going to be collateral damage with our allies?
I'm afraid there will be, because it comes in the context of the president also undermining NATO and our relationship with our allies. We're going to face some challenges in the years ahead. The isolation of America from the rest of the world is not in the interests of our country. The rest of the world is moving on climate, George. India just announced that within 13 years, 100% of all their cars are going to be electric vehicles. China's reduced emissions 4 years in a row. We're seeing a massive shift to solar and wind. And we in the United States ought to be leading this revolution and creating even more of the new good jobs here in the United States.
Mr. Vice President, thanks for your time this morning.
Thank you.